What was the best, you have no power here, moment you have ever seen?
I taught my 6th grade students about democratic processes, and we ran a simulation. Without fail, every one of my classes tried to impeach me. We had an HR lady who was extremely power hungry. She is walking around with the president of the company who flew in from Japan. She rushes him though the warehouse just spits out, "Oh, these are the warehouse guys, we don't have to stop and talk to them." He stops, walks over and starts talking to me about my last vacation. How buying my house went. You could just see her fuming behind him as we talked for almost 45 malines. I've had multiple meetings with him, we knew each other really well. I don't think he liked her and drug it out on purpose, but I was thrilled to see her just standing there bored as hell.
When an unhappy client threatens to go hire a better lawyer. They don't seem to get that this isn't a threat when they aren't paying me.
In my first apartment, my parents came to visit, and I said, "Fuck," when I hit my head on the open door of the freezer while standing up from grabbing something from the fridge. My mother said, "You can't talk like that in my hoo," and stopped mid-sentence.
I was working as a consultant for a company, there was a bit of a competition between me and this guy, company starts to have some financial issues so I leave and start working for a client of theirs. Shortly after joining they bring in this guy the first was competing with at my old job, he was technically my equal except now I was employed by the client and he was just a consultant. He was trying to one-up me during meetings and my boss told him that decisions are made by the company not the consultants. It felt good.
I worked at a Walmart as a cashier, and the assistant manager there was a dick. He would insult everybody working there and forced us sometimes to do work above our pay grade. 6 months later me and him got transferred to another Walmart that was just built and they needed to pick a manager and assistant manager. Some random got manager but I got assistant manager. I guess all the complaints on the assistant manager basically gave him a demotion, so one day he was ordering the other cashiers around, then I pulled him to the side and told him that if he kept pulling the same shit around he would be out of here. I haven't heard anything from him since.
I worked at a movie theater and some customers were adamant that a staff member had stolen their wallet after they dropped it. Turns out that these people just couldn't see and found the wallet once they actually looked for it. They got irate with literally everyone, from the mall security to the managers to the staff. Mall security finally said, "Get the fuck out," and the customers went, "You can't say that. This isn't your theater, we're customers." Mall security guy promptly said, "This is my mall, and I can do whatever the fuck I want."
New CEO came to our department on the first day of his work. He didn't have a pass card yet and a lower-level employee told him that he can't enter without pass card. CEO got upset and ordered a worker to let him in, but the worker insisted, "Show me the pass card, or you're not entering." And #X200B. Few days later this worker got a bonus. My dad called me after I moved out to inform me that the lawn was getting pretty long and needed to be mowed. So, I asked, "Well, just because you don't live here anymore doesn't mean it's not your responsibility," he said. "Yes it does," I said, and hung up on him. When my shitty father kicked me out of the house and then demanded he have access to my bank to control my financial situation, and I got to tell him, "You have no control over me anymore. You set me free when you kicked me out and now you can't do shit." New director. Decides admin should hold a meeting at noon MF in the nurses' lunchroom and bar them from entering during that time. Defines it in a group text as a quick win. My response, "Please help me to understand how this is beneficial to remove the nurses from their lunchroom during lunch break." No response, his peers and higher-ups in on the text. He is then moved to the quality department. Screwed up in so many levels.
My parents were yelling at me and then my grandpa walks over and tells them both to sit the fuck down. They both shut the fuck up and sit their ass down on the couch. It was by far the most powerful thing I've ever seen him do. LMAO.
When my manager at McDonald's gets into bitch fights with all the aggressive, toxic customers and booting them out the store by calling the mall security if they refuse to leave.
I worked at a grocery store for 5 years putting up with crazy customers and their awful attitudes. At the end of my tenure our store was set to be closed, and for the last month the store was sold to a liquidation company. Meaning we were no longer under our parent company's umbrella and were no longer concerned with retaining customer loyalty. I got to tell customers, no, and respond with every bit of sarcasm and disdain to every Karen I encountered for 1 month until the store officially closed.
When my electricity got shut off and I couldn't submit a claim on their website because I had no power.
Not sure if it fits, but during an insanely busy weekend before Christmas, a Karen was complaining to every associate about how messy our store was. The manager had relieved the girl at the fitting room and was helping to hang stuff. Karen pulled her crap and was trying to make a point that we were messy and a horrible place to shop. This manager told her roughly, "Mom, we're messy at the moment because we're a popular store. And the biggest reason we're messy is because of women like you who can't be bothered to pick up after themselves. It's not the associates making the mess. It's people like you. Your type have us outnumbered." First time I actually witnessed someone deflate.
Obligatory, not mine, but this video belongs in this thread. This is the best you don't have power here move I have ever seen lol. She was working for government, has problem sitting with baby on plane, tried to eat the job of air hostess then Uno reverse card lol. Some White House lady sat at my bar and tried to get a drink without ID. She pulled out her White House ID card which had no dob. I work at the White House. I told her that her bosses would be very proud of me enforcing their laws when I didn't serve her a drink.
Some secretary of some branch of a state agency would go on a power trip and stamp, "Do not copy," on things that she sent to local agencies. Well, I work for an oversight agency and I needed a copy. Locals were terrified, so I rolled my eyes and called to explain that the locals and I were basically the same entity. Woman started to have a conniption fit, but she got real quiet when I cut her off and said, "Fine, I'll issue a subpoena. What's your name and job title?" She answered, and the sheriff served her a subpoena for what I wanted. Guess she wasn't used to that.
My mother trying to force me to do stuff when she came and visited my dad's house.
Pretty much every time my in-laws come over. For over 20 years they have attempted to dictate how I should live my life, raise my kids, dress, cook, etc. I always just nod and say, "I'll consider that," but not in a genuine way, in a condescending "fuck you" way. When they press it, I simply say, "You may leave my house now."
I wasn't good at returning library books when I was a kid. I got lectured by my school librarian about it a lot. Fast forward 20 years and I'm a supervisor at the local public library and my former now retired school librarian goes there. One day I see her sneaking around the front desk instead of coming back to say hi to me and I immediately figure something's up. I go up to say hi and she acts exasperated and tells me she was trying to avoid me because she had overdue books. So I put on my reading glasses, pulled them down over my nose, and delivered the same lecture she'd given me countless times about being responsible and turning in books on time.
My wife and I moved to Wa State and my mill tried to tell me that she was going to call the police because I had pot in the house.
That would be a customer we had named Nick. I'll leave his last name out to protect the stupid. He would email us and always CC editor at somenationalnewspaper.com and most of his emails were things like, "Nothing fucking works." None of the national newspapers responded. I imagine some underling just rolled his eyes and deleted them. Finally he said, "Fix this in 5 minutes or I cancel." My manager says, "Let me see that email." He responded, "Thank you, I canceled your account. We don't want customers like you anyway. If you want to contact the media, that's your call. I'll happily provide the months of threatening emails you sent to my staff." He gave us months of headaches over a £45 per quarter account. We definitely didn't need him.
So my uncle is a deputy sheriff, and one time he was at an airport talking to my aunt over the phone in Spanish. Once he got done with his call, some nearby Karen that overheard him went up to him and started demanding to see his green card. Uncle has an accent too, so you can tell he's wasn't born in the US. Uncle decides to fuck with her and tells her he doesn't know what a green card is and has never heard of one. She gets more pissed and keeps demanding to see it. He messes with her some more, then eventually he goes, "Well, I don't got a green card but I got this," then takes out his wallet and shows her his badge. She immediately walked away while my uncle laughed his ass off.
At my university, it was always fun to watch the people who had been high school popular people think that this sort of popularity would just naturally carry over and that on this campus of thousands, they'd be a big shot or something. Was always fun to see just how many people could not care less about their attention whoring.
When I was working at a collection agency for a few months, paid well, shit job, I had a guy call in, absolutely livid. He ranted on and on about how he shouldn't have to pay us. As per how things flow, I advised him that the next step would be to take it to court if he didn't want to pay me. He said something along the lines of, "Well, I'm never going to buy from you ever again." Dude for some reason thought I cared if he didn't buy from the company that had passed his debt on to us, the collection agency, or thought we were one in the same. Told him I didn't care, he still has to pay. He was even more livid when he realized there was no negotiating to be had.
IT services for a client of mine. They paid for me to come to their office and address a problem. 8 hours minimum time. The issue was resolved in about 45 minutes. They'd set up something incorrectly and it was pretty obvious once I got into the system. I was packing up to leave and the client stopped me. "What are you doing? The system is fixed, so I'm headed out back to my office." "No. I paid for 8 hours. You'll do your 8 hours. If I tell you to wash my car for 8 hours, that's what you'll be doing." "Right. So anyway, I'm leaving. I'll notify the office to send you the invoice and in all likelihood we'll no longer be working with you and withdrawing your lease on our equipment." Karen walking into a gay bar to tell us off for making God cry. Literally, no power.
A cop accused me of going 87 mph in the right lane in traffic behind a truck, ticket and everything. In court I pointed out that the ticket said he lasered me at 297 yards. I told him in court at the podium that if he could hit a target moving through traffic at 87 mph across 3 football fields that I would sponsor him for the Olympic shooting team. The judge pointed out that they are only legally reliable at 200 yards and then she asked him if there was other evidence that I was speeding. The best is that I had been speeding earlier on the trip, but a mile ahead of my exit I moved into the right lane behind a truck and that's where he lasered me. I was bartending one night and these 3 guys were absolutely hammered, so I cut them off. One of the guys proceeded to try to argue with me, saying he has all this money and he tells me when he's done drinking and he's not even drunk. At this point, I'm done trying to be polite and point blank tell him I'm done arguing with him, will not be serving him and his buddies, and he can leave. He looks at me and says, "Now excuse me, who are you to tell me how much I can and cannot drink?" I look him dead in the eye and say, "The fucking bartender, now it's time for you to go." The look on his face was priceless. Never forget the golden rule, don't piss off your bartender.
My father trying to force a name for our soon-to-be-born child. For all 3 of them. That lady that got tazzed at the football game. Shusha screaming, "You're not gonna arrest me," to the cop. I'm laughing while I tell her, "Karen, that's not how it works." A museum in a town added to its collection a replica of Michelangelo's famous nude statue, David. The pastor of a nearby church demanded that the curator remove it from display because it was inappropriate for public viewing. To her credit, the museum's curator told the clergyman in unequivocal terms that the church had no say in the matter and that fine art would be exhibited without need for ecclesiastical approval.
When the percussion teacher tried to take my phone away at a band competition because I was on it. He asked me for it and I just said no thanks and he walked away.
Just last week we had another supervisor from a different department come and tell us what he needed, not uncommon in my job, like, "Oh, I need this by this date, but we're super swamped right now," and my coworker said, "Oh, we can probably get to that next week because we are working on another project," and the supervisor said, "This needs to be done now," and my coworker said, "We'll do it in 3 weeks, sorry." And there's really nothing the other supervisor can do.
My parents came to visit and my mother, who is very old-fashioned, the woman should be a homemaker and if not she shouldn't out-earn the man, told my wife, who makes stacks as a dev team manager compared to my peanuts as a sports writer, "You know dear, you really should try to keep a cleaner house." And without looking up from her making lunch my wife said, "Yeah, your son forgot to clean this week before you guys flew in." The stunned look on my mom's face was priceless.
Girl came into my apartment to hang out with my roommate. Demanded that I turn off the football game I was watching so we could focus on her. I literally said to her, "Who the hell do you think you are?" and kept watching the game. She yelled at me and stormed out. Thankfully me and my roommate never saw her again.
I have a little secret that has helped me a couple times in fights, that being that I've got pain asymbolic. Years back when I was 18 some fucker punched me in the face at Walmart. I didn't move at all, just looked at him. raised my eyebrow like, "You really want to do this?" Then put my arms behind my back and said, "Try again." My mother-in-law tried to tell me how I should discipline my children in my own home. Sorry. This isn't your house. These aren't your children. If you don't like how I handle my children when they misbehave, you can GTFO. Just want to add that I have never spanked my children. I was beat as a child. That's not how my kids were to be raised. Woman complained we wouldn't fill her clearly fraudulent C2 prescription, brought the brand new store manager back to the pharmacy to make us fill it. She says you have to fill it. God himself cannot make us fill anything if it fails the checks. No.
I grew up fairly poor. In some of my HS classes there was a very rich girl who liked to lord power over people. She had the teachers convinced she was a saint, though. One day she and I got into an argument and we were sent to the vice principal's office. I thought I was doomed. Lo and behold, the VP wasn't there that day and the art teacher was filling in for this sort of thing. We told him what happened and I mentioned that she acted like she was better than everyone else because she has nice clothing and money. She yelled that I was a liar and the art teacher said, "You do act like you own the place." She was shocked and shut the hell up. Knowing someone finally believed me was just blissful.
After dumping me, my ex reached out to express her opinion of the woman I was dating and how it wouldn't last because she's awful. Awful enough for me to marry her and have a kid apparently.
When Gandalf the Grey tried to dispossess King Theoden.
Nasty stereotype local surf crew. With an attitude like that you're going to get slapped up by us, random dude. Gestures at everyone, one of his friends, paddling away from him. Random dude gets out of the water.
Yesterday, HR asked me if I wanted to use my own personal time for punching in 5 minutes late or if I wanted to take a tardy. My response was, I'm not taking shit because I was within the 7 minutes allowed under the resolved class action settlement. Unions are great.
Was pulled over by AZDPS and they tried to ticket me for speeding. On a highway smack dab in the middle of an Indian reservation. He asked to see my ID, my registration, and to search my car. All no's. Okay sir, have a great day.
My boyfriend was kicked out at 16 by his parents because he started smoking. Fast forward 13 years, he lives with me in our house, his parents come to visit him, and he hasn't finished his cigarette so he's still smoking it when they turn up. His mum tells him to put it out. He got to tell her she can't tell him what to do in his own house. Even his dad was like, he's got a point. He was very happy that day.
Girl tried to use sex as payment for car repair. Then she found out I'm gay and it was gonna be $200.
Worked in a military biological research lab for a while as a civilian contractor. Every time a new military officer rotated in as the department head, 2-year cycles, they'd try to boss around the civilians. We are legally allowed to ignore them. They had to filter requests through our civilian supervisors. HR supported us completely as it was a huge liability issue. Read, lots of paperwork for them if anyone escalated an issue. Ever tell a power-tripping high-ranking U.S. military officer, no? Great stuff.